Words and Worlds, Literature as a Site of Ideological Resistance.
By Paul Zacharia, H.S. Shivaprakash, Ajithan, Volga and Anuja Chandramouli will be the moderator of this session.
Requesting all the speakers on stage.
I'm very happy to moderate this wonderful panel. So, as a typical insecure writer, I've always wondered whether words actually matter, whether it actually gets swallowed up by the void. But I also believe in the power of the written word to make a difference. And I believe in what all my panelists have achieved so far. Starting with Volga ma'am. Volga ma'am, as you all know, is a legend. And she has influenced generations of writers with her fierce feminist works which have challenged the patriarchal narrative. And my question for Volga ma'am is, ma'am, when it comes to using your work to bring about change, you've used a lot of, in addition to the fieriness and passion which you bring to your work, there's also a lot of sensitivity, compassion and humility, and you have credited this to Telugu literature, which has set a wonderful precedent for questioning the existing mythology which is considered to be a sacred cow. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how Telugu writing and literature has served as the roots, the inspiration for your own work?
Today we are going to talk about literature as the site of ideological resistance, and you asked about how Telugu literature from its beginning, is it a site of ideological resistance? Yes, I say, and all writers somehow or other, directly, indirectly or subversively challenge, resist the existing authorities, existing traditions or norms. I think from the beginning, Telugu literature and Telugu poets start this tradition of resistance. When we go to the old literature, the Prachina literature, there are poets who question the authority of the kings. Usually in those days the poets were patronized by kings, but some poets openly questioned and they hate the authority of the kings, and they didn't give their kavyas to kings with a dedication. Usually it is the practice. Potana is an example, and he wrote it was told that he wrote a poem like Bala Rasala Sala Navapallava Komala Kavya Kanyakan Kulalakichi a Padupu Kudu Bujinchuta Kante Satkavul Halikulaina Nemi Kandamula Falodara Kulaina Nemi Nijadara Sutodara Poshanardhamai. Why should poets give their kavyas to kings? And it's like a food from prostitution, like that here. And many poets follow. Durjati, he openly, of 15th century, he openly criticized Rajul Mattul, Vari Seva Narakaprayambu. That is, all the kings are like mad ones and their service is like hell. And he is a court poet of Krishna Devaraya. So every poet had in their minds that resistance is there. That's continued. Vemana questioned the existing system. It's the rituals of the Brahminical rituals and many things, many social ill practices. And after Vemana, the modern period also began with the resistance of the existing ideology of the traditional mode and resistance of the many ill practices, socially ill practices of the existing system, like Kandukuri Veeresalingam, he stood for the cause of women's education. He stood against child marriages. He stood against many ill practices of the society. Then Gurajada, he created a heroine from the class of downtrodden. That means a prostitute is the heroine of, the first heroine of our Telugu modern literature. So it's a resistance to the existing system. After that, the progressive literature came, Sri Sri came, and many progressive poets criticized, challenged, resisted the socially norms, hierarchical norms, and patriarchal norms. In that scenario, after the poets also openly supported the armed revolution of Srikakulam and Naxalbari movements, the feminist movement came and challenged the patriarchal society more openly than in the past. So the more openly means the feminists in the 90s spoke about their bodies, their problems which are particular to their bodies and their about their violence, domestic violence, everything they as women experienced. That is a big threat to the society, the patriarchal society, and we all, the poets of the 90s, the women poets of the 90s, fought together to stand on our side of resistance. So it is a long tradition and a very new battle in every decade. After feminist poetry came Dalit poetry, minority poetry, poetry means literature, minority literature, and now transgender, and every group for the first time fighting or struggling to establish their identity in their own words, in their own poetry or stories. I think ideologies are openly or subvertly there in every writer's writing. Writers' words and sentences are not at all innocent. They carry lot of meaning, lot of weight, lot of politics. Whether we understand or not, whether the writers are for the progress of the society or they want the society to walk backwards, that's a different matter, but the ideologies will be there.
Thank you, Volga. Volga spoke about speaking truth to power, kings or politicians, but in her writing, she also challenges the gods, whether it's the liberation of Sita or Yashodhara or on the banks of the Pampa. Thank you, Volga. And my next question is to Ajithan. So we have a poet and prose writers here, and Ajithan here is a philosopher as well. And I know you're influenced by the work of Schopenhauer. So I wanted to ask you, philosophy is, lots of people would say, it dapples in the realms of the abstract. And it calls for a level of detachment, whereas the kind of ideological resistance we are talking about, it calls for more passion, just to be more effective as a change maker. So how would you reconcile your philosophical side with the change maker side of you through your work?
Yeah. Firstly, I wouldn't call myself a philosopher. I'm just a student of philosophy. So, coming from a philosophical background, I see the word ideology carries a negative connotation in philosophy. Many philosophers have used it before, but it's Marx's interpretation that we generally accredit to. And Marx defines ideology as constituting the superstructure. So it includes um, culture, law, jurisdiction, and even science. So, but we think, Marx interpreted art as something that originates from the ideology but transcends it. So following from that, I carry the prejudice that Marx had with the word ideology. I too think ideology is a negative term, and literature should never be a voice of ideology. So I would define ideology as such, like it is any system of thought that has a moral imperative, do's and don'ts. We can call it norms. So the purpose of literature is to question the norms, to examine them, to deconstruct them. But these are the words that are familiar to us through the postmodern critical theory. But there is a point that literature forgoes the sense of normativity altogether in the rejection of norms. So many postmodern critics in their later works have pointed out to this path. They saw beyond the postmodernism towards a new age where we retain the sense of normativity, the quest for truth, value, and meaning, while rejecting the current norms. So, so normativity is something that drives the humanity forward, and it is never about norms. Norms belong to cults, a group of people with a decided set of values. So here I would quote Kant in this situation. The Kant had an aesthetic theory, which basically says he distinguishes taste from aesthetic feeling. Aesthetic feeling is something that we feel very personal and individual, but also necessarily connects to the universal, that we think should be universal. We all have that feeling that while we read a novel, we think it's written only for us. And at the same time, we think the whole world should know this. The whole world should celebrate this. This oscillation from the individual to the universal, that embodies art for me. And cult is a very antithesis of this phenomenon. The cult has no individual, nor no universal as well. The cult. So here, I think in the postmodern landscape, the art has disintegrated into cults. So we have cults which says which restrict them to a particular taste and reject the universality of art. So I think the very purpose of art is to take the individual to the realm of universal and come back from the universal feeling back to the individual. This oscillation is, I think, guided by the feeling of normativity. Here I would name normativity, with a familiar term, normativity can be interpreted as idealism. So idealism is the force that connects the individual to the universal. But cults are the very antithesis of these two. In the postmodern world, we see the world divided into sectarian politics, and the world is already into cults. And when art imitates that cult phenomenon, it forgoes the universality, the very ideal that it strives for. So idealism is, in a sense, what drives humanity, what drives art, and I think every artist is an idealist at his core. Even the most pessimistic artist in his darkest work is an idealist, I feel, because what he seeks is a form of communication, to reach out to another human being in the hope of being understood. That, I think, is the ultimate form of idealism. Thank you.
So, getting to the heart of it, I think you've questioned agenda-driven writing, especially its integrity. So, I thought Volga and Ajithan, you have parallel arguments about bringing about change. And now, Paul, I know you're a bit of a provocateur, if I might call you that. And I don't think you've flirted with controversy so much as had a proper love story with controversy. And you are very famous for your wicked irreverence, if I might call it that. And I wanted to ask you about the nature of controversy when it comes to ideological resistance. How do you ride the lightning without getting burnt by it? You want to use, wait, I think this one works. I think this one works.
No, this.
Sorry.
Anuja, can you just repeat the last part of the question? That is, how do you call?
I think for artists of any stripe, I think controversy is a double-edged sword. It can make your career or break you. And I think you've, balanced beautifully on the knife edge. So I think I was trying to ask for your secret.
As far as I know, controversy is a word that's created by the media. You can't really go by, you can't say anything is controversial because the newspaper says so and so said something and that is controversial. It's a very, very difficult and complicated thing in the sense when I say something which the establishment, there's a very common word for everything that represents the status quo. So when I say something that in Kerala the status quo is represented by the political parties, by the religion, by the government, and by the media itself. These are the most powerful, and the castes. There are a few castes there. So the moment you say something that disagrees with these 3-4 so-called mainstream forces, then immediately you are labeled as controversial. Even they don't do it, the media does it. So there is no way that, I cannot be deliberately controversial. It will be very stupid. People will people are not fools. They will know that this man is saying it just to attract whatever. So when you write what you believe in. And when you write fiction, I am basically a fiction writer. I also do some public speaking and some column writing, etc., etc. So the thing is that in fiction, fiction is a world by itself. And you choose a particular theme to write a story on, and there need not be anything controversial in that. In fact, there's hardly anything that's controversial in any of my stories except one story which had Jesus Christ as a central character, and that attracted some problems from the Catholic Church, not even from the other churches. Otherwise, fiction is basically left out of the controversial thing. It's when you make political, so-called social or political statements that the controversy brand comes up. And it's very difficult to avoid it because I personally am, all through my life, I have been, this is not confessing or boasting or anything. I have been out of the system. I have tried to be deliberately and consciously an outsider. If you are an insider, then you simply can't function as a writer. Because the only thing that keeps you going as a writer and as a citizen above all, see, before the writer comes a citizen. If you are not as a citizen, if you are not free in your mind, then what are you? You have no business to write at all if you are not free. So I have very consciously cultivated freedom. I got out of my religion maybe 50 years back, and I'm very happy I did that. It took a lot of trouble, but I could get out of the Catholic Church. I was born into the Catholic Church. And it took me some time to see through what the political parties and politicians and the whole business of politics is doing to my state. And then by the time I think this is going back, long back in time, I was apolitical till June 6, 1976. I was in Delhi at that time. I hope I got the date correct. That's the day on which emergency was declared. 75. So that day, my political life was over. I knew that I am living in a nation which is a very dangerous nation. But it's a fantastic nation, but it is a nation on the edge of so many things. And now we see what we are experiencing today is the heritage of that emergency. People have discovered how easy it is to get away with anything in India and abduct the whole nation to their own ways of this. So that's the day on which I became political. So these are the things. In order to become free, so what I'm saying is ideology is in it. Ideology is, a personal ideology is a struggle to get out of ideologies. The Catholic Church has an ideology. The Marxist Party has an ideology. Every political party has an ideology. The media has an ideology. So if you are caught in this business, and I'm a man who functions with the media hand in hand, because they are the people who publish what I write. They are the people who publish my columns and who report what I speak. But I should also know what they are really, they themselves are in a trap because they have to survive. All that I know. Therefore, I think as a writer, my foremost duty is to keep myself free from some of these primary influences that are pressed upon a citizen of India. And on every citizen, some citizens cave in, but as a writer, I keep my mind free. That doesn't mean I can go out and fight on the streets. I really don't know how to do it. And I don't think it will help anybody if I went out on the street and started fighting. But if I wrote a piece about that in a major newspaper, for example, well, it will at least 20 people will read it. So this is the way, Anuja, the whole business of controversy goes on. I have never been controversial. My friend Adu Gopalakrishnan is sitting here. They all have watched me for years, the way I have functioned in the Kerala society. So this is the story of my controversy.
Actually, I think, Paul, you showed us, you didn't tell us, you showed us how to walk on the knife edge. So he concealed a lot while revealing a lot. So he danced on the knife edge for us today. Thank you. And Shivaprakash sir, I have a dicey question for you. I think when it comes to talking about you and your work, it's impossible to leave out the Basava factor. And he, as we know, is one of the leading lights of the Bhakti movement, and he spoke very bravely for an anti-caste, more inclusive, more tolerant society, and you've been in the eye of the storm, thanks to Basava. And I wanted to ask you, as a poet par excellence, when you grapple with the same issues that Basava did in an equally problematic age, I want to ask you if we as writers and poets and artists, we make the situation better or worse? Are we erasing divides or are we perpetuating divides?
Well, it's unfortunate that I'm associated only with Basava, because I'm open to many influences. I'm equally influenced by Acharya Vidhav Gupta. I'm influenced by Tukaram, Kabir, Mirabai, Sahajobai, all the Sant traditions of India. I'm influenced by Sufis, Rumi and others. And I'm influenced by Guru Gobind Singh, who was a great poet. So it's not just Basava that I'm obsessed with. It's true that of course Basava is an important influence on me because I was born in the community which reads Vachanas as scriptures. So we never read, chanted the Vedas, we never read the Bible or Quran, we read Basavana's Vachanas as our scripture. So that got deep into my unconscious, so it was there. But I found a lot of other influences which are similar to Basava. But when I write, I forget everything. I think Volga, Ajithan and Paul used the word ideology in the sense in which it normally used as one's worldview. But in the modern literary theory, there's another connotation to ideology. Ideology means false consciousness. False consciousness, of course, Paul hinted at it, of course. He didn't use that word in that sense, but the dominant groups dictate what you should think. And literature is nothing unless it has what Kuntaka called vakrata. In Sanskrit they say chamatkara. It has to see what others don't see. It has to look at the world afresh. William Blake said, to see the world in a grain of dust and heaven in a wild flower. So to do that, you should learn to look at the world, to smell the world, to touch the world differently than those whose perceptions are conventionally predetermined. So, I never write to create controversies, though my play Mahachetra created a lot of controversies, which lasted for 2 years and which shook the government, and some 20 government buses were burned down by agitators against the book and so on. And I lived under threat for 2 years. All that happened. I didn't want this to happen. I wrote, as Tulsidas says, Swanta Sukhaya, what I felt about the times of Basava and what impact it had on the whole caste structure of society those days. I wrote about that. That became a big controversy. I think it was the Russian poet Yutushenko who said, I just whispered, but this world is so weak it became a thunder. So whenever I write, I just whisper. I talk to myself. But myself is connected with everything else in the world. I am rooted with the perception of what the Tamil Siddha said. Addathile ulladu, piddathile undu, piddathile ulladu, addathile undu. Yatha brahmande, thatha piddande in Sanskrit. So everything is connected. All our minds are connected. I want to connect with all the minds through my poetry, through my theatre. Unfortunately, Mahachetra was, attacked brutally. But my other plays have connected with people. My 2 plays on the 2 Dalit saints, Manteswami and Malay Madeshwara, gave a new collective identity to Dalit communities of Karnataka. Literature is not only destructive, it's creative. It's a love letter to the world. Basically, it's a love letter to the world through myself. I am the post office, the address is the world at large. So, that's how I find how poetry, drama travels across regions. For example, one of my plays, Madani Madaya, Madaya the Cobbler, it gave a collective identity to the Rabha community in Assam. Rabha, it's a tribal community. When the director, Shukracharya Rama, was no more with us, he read the play, he said, this play is telling our story. I was not aware of the existence of Rabha community. And he was not aware of a saint called Malayamadeshwara. How they could connect. So this is the function of literature. So when you do that, when you are true to yourself, true to the deepest stirrings in your soul, then that becomes a threat to the world. Because the world at large doesn't want to see the truth. Majority in the world want to see the truth through the ideological glasses. Not to be free from that is the basic duty of the writer. So it is a spontaneous struggle against ideology. So today, when it has become more difficult than ever to think for yourself, to see for yourself, because the domination of the media, the propaganda machinery of the ruling groups, it's very difficult for anybody to keep one's eyes and ears and tactile sensation unaffected by that, to keep them pure. So I feel that for me, poetry and drama are spontaneous struggles against ideology in this sense, without consciously trying to be that. Because there are a lot of progressive writers in my language who want to change society. That's too tall a claim. As Auden said, his progressive poetry could not save one life from Nazi gas chambers. So whether my poetry saves people or not, I don't know. But at least some people who read it empathize with me and see the world as it is, not as ideology says it should be. Thank you.
If Paul is the lightning rider, I think that would make you the wielder of the thunderbolt. We are whispers at that. Quite incredible. And since we talked about controversy, I think we should now address censorship, because Volga, you've been a victim of both. First of all, you've been fearless in talking about the villainized characters from the Ramayana like Shurpanaka and Mandodari. And you also talked about the validity of feminine desire, whatever form or shape it takes. And with Shurpanaka, you questioned the morality behind chopping off her nose and her breasts merely for articulating her desire. And I think you faced a lot of criticism and for that. And I'm pretty sure your editor's office was attacked at that time. So I want to ask you about censorship, and is there an element of fear, and how do you deal with it when you're involved in the process of writing?
Firstly, I want to express my feelings about Shivaprakash and what Shivaprakash speaks just now is an ideology. it has a meaningful, in its own way, an ideology which is trying to differ with all other ideologies and negating them. That itself is an idea, it's a thought process. Those thought process, when they apply to larger groups, and also about cults, yeah, individual and universal. My thought is, from the universe, first you have to identify yourselves, you have find your identity, and then how to connect with the larger universe, which is divided, which is full of divisions, hatred and all that. How to connect to that universe is a long battle, and within that battle you have to go through many ideologies, and you like barriers. Some are like barriers, some open gates, some invite us, and I believe that the subject we are going to speak is that how from so many centuries, how people are coming out of those ideologies. Like you say, the modern ideologies like Marxism, everything, how to come forward. And the cult thing is one of the barrier, and we have to cross it. To cross it also, what you speak has an idea, a thought process. That's my opinion. Sorry to express. And then you ask about my character Surpanaka, and I wrote Sabari in the Pampa. I'm comfortable with my stories of liberation of Sita. Nobody attacked me. Nobody created any controversy over those stories. I'm happy, and everybody, even the traditional scholars, also comfortable. And I think, is there any wrong I did, because they are also liking these stories? I may what is in there? And I think the latest novel, On the Banks of Pampa, I think the controversy may come, because I challenged the notion of the state, the Rajyam, its power, the expansionist, the wars, the borders and boundaries which were created to separate people, and the whole concept of citizenship, and how the citizens were demarcated by these, show your card, show your birth certificate, or show something that you belong to this country, this border, this thing. And all those things I subtly and subvertly put into that novel. So it may raise controversy, but the as Shivaprakash told, I write with so much pain and so much love. So that pain and love may create some empathy with the readers to the characters I created, like Surpanaka and Mandodari. And Mandodari was never a negative character, but Surpanaka, from the authorities, I received censorship. When I wrote about a ballet about Surpanaka and Sita dancing together with a lot of friendship, and they realized that they are pawns in the expansionist vision of the Aryans, then that ballet, Doordarshan people like the ballet, the whole ballet was 1 hour, but they want to censor Surpanaka's character. Surpanaka was a not sufferer, not a victim, they told. She is immoral in asking Rama and Lakshmana to marry her. And we argued with them that it's not immoral, it is their culture. There is nothing wrong for Surpanaka to love somebody to whom she was attracted. So, but the authorities of Doordarshan didn't accept our arguments and they ruthlessly censored the portion where Sita and Surpanaka were talking friendly. But in the stories, everybody accepted that because the pain of Surpanaka, I described or I put it in a way that people will be empathetic to the feelings of Surpanaka.
So actually, when I Googled Volga as homework for this session, that's where I came up with some of the clickbait headlines which Volga has cleared. So the moral here is don't believe everything you read on the internet and do your fact checking, I guess. So for Ajithan, I wanted to, Volga spoke about the cults and how we need to progressively move towards eradicating the barriers. So I wanted to ask you about the communal religious fault lines which you mentioned, which divide us. So how do you go about handling it in your writing?
It is in the nature of literature to transcend these barriers. No writer intentionally writes for a certain group of people. He writes to the world. So we may read a African novel or a Japanese novel and we identify with the characters and the emotions. So in the broad sense, that's what I meant by normativity. So a 19th century novel's protagonist might die for his country, sacrifice his life for a nation. And we now may find the very notion of nationhood questionable. But we still identify with the sacrifice he made by the altruistic gesture. So that's what connects the world. I mean, the sense of a quest for meaning and value beyond oneself. Naturally, literature takes us there. And as I said, literature speaks to the world. So you may belong to a group or a culture, but the ultimate aim is to transcend. And as Shivaprakash said, ideology is what restricts us into a group. So ideology belongs to cults, but idealism is the language of humanity.
Thank you. Lovely. Idealism belongs to humanity. I love it. Paul, recently you created a bit of a flutter by going on record to state that Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada are not to be just referred to as regional languages. They should be included as the national language. My question to you is, so when it comes to regional pride versus national identity, what is that fine line we should be straddling not to let one overpower the other?
I think when I said, to answer your first part of the question first, when I said Tamil, Malayalam, Assamese or whatever, they are not regional languages, because I think the word regional was used somewhere along the line after we gained independence to sort of establish that there is a central power core to India, which is not in the regions but somewhere there. I don't know where. So this is in a democracy, it's absolutely wrong to have such a notion, that there is power situated and deposited in one particular central place, and that is where everything flows from. And I think it was in this line, in line with this thought, that they talked about regional languages, because, you know, it was a big task for Nehru and company not to make Hindi the national language. If I remember right, I hope I got my facts right. So then it became a habit of the media and of the officialdom in Delhi to speak about non-Hindi languages as regional languages. That is very funny, outrageous. I mean, there's no excuse for that sort of a nonsensical stand in a democratic republic. Every language, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, everything, every language is a language in itself. It is as important as the official language of India, which is Hindi. And I think we don't have a national language. Or English is, I mean, whatever, that thing. So we have no business to look at non-Hindi languages. So the unspoken assumption was that the non-Hindi languages are the regional languages. Hindi was never called. This is what I mentioned. I think this question must have been raised hundreds of times before that. But I did this last time in the Sahitya Academy meeting, some academy meeting, and I think suddenly people remembered, yeah, why are we called regional languages? Why are we? Why is Tamil a regional language? So this question came up. So it's all part of an unspoken, unwritten system of a non-democratic system of thinking, of anti-democratic, autocratic thinking.
I'm sorry to cut you off here, but I think Shivaprakash sir, why don't you just quickly give us your thoughts on the way forward, because I think right now readers are an endangered species headed towards extinction. So as writers, how do we remain relevant?
I feel only those books get widely read which get some international award, where the decision is mostly made by the literary agent. The literary agent has emerged as the controlling authority of the distribution of literature in Europe. At least this has not happened in our languages. I don't want thousands of people to read my works. If they do, I'm very happy. My poetry books sell quite well. My plays are performed again and again. But I write not for reading public, but for a Sahrudaya, who reads with attentiveness, empathy, and sensitiveness. That's what I aim at. If other people read it, it's their business.
Thank you so much to Volga, Shivaprakash, Paul and Ajithan. You've been wonderful, and thanks so much to the audience and BBL for this wonderful opportunity.